It's Super Bowl Sunday. But before the game, let's get into some really good, courageous conversations. I have an amazing guest today by the name of Paul Jackson from Philadelphia. So I really appreciate y'all coming through. I really appreciate Paul for doing this interview. He has a lot of great ideas and he works really well within the community. And I think he has a lot of insightful thoughts for us. So before we get into it, we got to get to some commercials. All right. Thanks again. Now, before we really go, I want y'all to subscribe to the channel. Subscribe right now. Let me know if you hear me, and let's get into it. 12 Station Network. That's what we're called, okay? 10 beliefs that are keeping you poor and how to change them. I wrote this ebook with a collection of 3 AIs, and we created 10 beliefs, such as money is evil, such as I don't have the time. And we are really working with breaking down those beliefs. Now, First Base IO is also a company that can help you launch your LLC for a cheap price. This is one of the hottest products on the internet right now. Then we have Keto for the win. All right. Keto can help you lose weight fast. It can help you tone up. Summer is on the way. So go to forthewin.com and check it out. And one more again, this book right here, like I said, written with 3 AIs. I'm going to go into it later, but it breaks down beliefs, some of the beliefs that I have as well. So every time I read it, it helps me, encourages me to change what I think about money and know that it is a tool that I can use to help myself and those in the community. All right, so enough said with that. All right, let's go into introducing our guests. All right, so tonight we have Paul Jackson from Philadelphia. He's a curator, he's an advocate of philosopher, an intelligent mind, an upcoming leader, and I want y'all to formally meet him. Let's get it.
Hey, peace, everybody. What's up, world? What's up? What's up? All those powerful titles.
Yes, and
um,
you deserve it. Welcome to Between Worlds. Thank you.
yeah, I'm honored to be. I'm honored to be here. Thank you for finding me out there in the world, and then again in the World Wide Web, and asking me to be on. I'm honored to be here, and yeah, I'm with it.
For sure, for sure. So tell the people where you're from.
I'm from West Philadelphia, born and raised. Southwest is where I spent most of my days. No, I'm definitely from West Philly originally. I was born and raised in the bottom around 40th and Cambridge near Girard, near Parkside Ave area, and in Southwest near Cobbs Creek and 60th Street. So I'm a West Philly boy with a South Philly bend to it.
Okay. I spent a little time in Philadelphia. I went to Temple University. So I really love Philly. Always got love for Philly.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the organizations that you work with out there?
Um, the main ones lately are Frontline Dads. It's a nonprofit anti-violence organization. We do a lot of different things that relate to preventing and responding to violence, including from grocery programs to counseling for the youth, opening youth centers for them, taking them on trips and other things. I'm part of the new OTO coalition, organizing the organizers. Right now, I'm on the public relations committee, which oversees food programs, outreach, and other things. That's like a coalition of organizations. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's us organizing the organizers, finding fellows out there who are in different teams, organizations, in the work, and bringing us together so we can bridge our resources. Um, and other main organizations right now that I want to speak on today.
I remember day one,
Oh,
day two.
oh yeah, there you go. Oh, I didn't know you knew about that. Okay, cool, cool. So my new I'm now the director of special projects for Day One, Not Day Two, run by awesome brother Andre, aka Day One, which is an anti-youth incarceration, public advocacy, and a music and arts nonprofit organization. Yeah, so yeah, it's another one. Yeah, I'm. Oh, I forgot to. I'm part of Love Now Media under Josh Duncan, the founder of the entity, as a journalist. Ironically, hello, fellow
Okay.
media person.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get to take my writing skills and go in that direction thanks to being drafted in by her team. Yeah, I was honored.
What is the name of it again?
Love Now Media.
Love Now Media. Okay, and we can find them on IG and
Yeah,
Facebook.
lovenowmedia.com or
Okay.
org. Yeah, but definitely Love Now Media on Instagram. They're an organization doing a lot of great things, but they're looking to show the narrative, especially of Black America, through the lens of love. So, um,
Yeah.
I started working with them last year. I'll tell you more about it as you go on. Though,
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. So let's get into it. What brought you to be into the community? Like, why are you passionate about this?
Uh, hmm. A few things I would say. My parents, to a degree, and my grandparents, and I mean that like my grandmother on my dad's side, she, for I guess for lack of a better word, she was like a lifelong missionary. So she was always into helping people and assisting. And um, my mom and my dad were always helpful people. You know, folks on the block or in the community, folks in the family, assisting with things, advice, A, B, and C, and always kind of instilling those kind of values into us. And I grew up. I was born and raised really poor. I was born originally into a house of 14 people with both my grandparents, my mother's side, all of their children who were alive at that time, and all of their grandchildren, including me and my two sisters. And we grew up like really poor, but we didn't really know we was poor because it was a quality upbringing in a sense of like it was a lot of love. The block was communal. I was raised on 40th and Cambridge, which I sometimes say is like that part of the bottom, north side of the bottom in West Philly was one of those neighborhoods that I always say was desegregated. It was integrated like last, like one of the last ones, because
Mhm.
it's kind of boxed off. So we kind of like knew all of our neighbors at that time, and but the kind of values that my parents generally put into us, and also my grandparents, and I was a curious child, so going out talking to people in the neighborhood who worked at stores and who was on their front step and also growing up in the ghetto in the hood, like during the crack epidemic I was born in '88. I'm
Okay.
34, about to turn 35. So living through the entire '90s and late '80s crack epidemic, the kind of things that I've seen, I always had this urge that it could be different. Um, I mean, everything you stereotypically hear about the hood, I probably done seen. People
Mhm.
getting shot at or shot, crackheads jumping through windows to take radios, crack vials, with the colorful tops all um, littered throughout the uh, the mud and the curbs and the gutter, and just seeing the crime, the disparity, but also, like I always say, the hood has so much glory, and so much gory. So the glory side is like remembering bright summer days with the cherry blossom trees, pink flowers covering the street, and everybody running around playing frisbee or ball in the street and tag and all that kind of stuff. And the neighborliness, like neighbors down the street gardening or people greeting each other and really knowing each other's names and for generations, like people in my grandma's generation knew each other, and my aunts and my mom and my dad, they knew each other, and all the I came out of, even given the grittiness of the ghetto, I still came out of some community values, spaces and places in my family outside the house as well. Wasn't perfect, was a little crazy at times, but I feel like it was instilled early on.
Okay, that's what's up. So I remember one of our conversations, you mentioned like the other races in the community. You made it well, you were curious. It was a natural curiosity for you to reach out and to form bonds.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's other races in the community.
Yes.
Yeah, the areas that I grew up in, originally, deep in West and deep in Southwest. At the time I grew up there, from the late '80s up until the early 2000s, was almost all black. And there was some, like, the corner store with the Koreans before the Dominicans and Puerto Ricans kind of came in and took over those businesses. Um, Various random ethnicities, but for me it was like, I'm gonna give you like the early on part, and then later on it's like the neighborhoods became a little bit more ethnically diverse. First it was like black people of various different backgrounds, like um, growing up, especially in my like teen years and going forward, and there being like pro-black people and ex-Panthers and Garveyites sitting on their front step or at neighborhood meetings or at the park. And just like being a curious child that was like put on to reading early, had like a lot of ideas I wanted to run past people. And what I couldn't find out in the home, but my parents were like always, go find it out if we don't know, or put me in front of a documentary, or tell me, give me a library card. And after taking me to the library, sending me to the library, like, go check things out. It was talking to people, just random, at the time to me, random people in the neighborhood, at events. Um, Now, later in childhood, like I guess maybe like 12, 11 or 12 forward, we living in Southwest, the second place in Southwest. I was at 60th and Cobbs Creek, Springfield area, then ended up over at 73rd and Passyunk, not that far from Island Avenue and Delco and Darby in the late 90s, early 2000s. And there was a lot of at the time it was like 1/10 still white people down there. But it was like, your poor whites, South Philly style, but Southwest style, a little bit different. And there was like Vietnamese, a little bit of Vietnamese, and at the time, and then there was an influx of West Africans that came in waves from like late '90s into the 2000s. And like I said, being a curious child and a friendly person and kind of like positively confrontational, like, hey, where you from? Tell me about where you from. Trying new foods and making friends in school, in middle school, West Africans. And um, the first time I went to school outside the hood of Southwest was to Parkway Center City. So young boy from the hood ends up 2 blocks from City Hall at the old Parkway Center City High School, which wasn't like, it was downtown, but wasn't. I mean, it's a great school. I'm not knocking it, but like it wasn't like it was a special school like a Masterman or anything like that. It was just like downtown, and we had pretty good principal, some pretty good programs, and some hardworking teachers that I didn't probably value as much as I could have at the time. Ironically, I became a school teacher at certain points in my life, but basically, yeah, karma's came. But going to school downtown, I met a much wider range of different kinds of black friends, Asians, Irish, uh, Indians, a couple of Indians, Guyanese. I met a wide range of folks from all across the hoods, across all of Philly, from all over the city and from all of different backgrounds, especially. But a lot of us grew up in the hoods and was poor. My Rican friends who was there. Um, and it's kind of, and being downtown, whether before school, after school, or how my school was special from some other schools, they would let you leave the school for 45 minutes to an hour in the middle of the day for your lunch period. So, because our school was so small, we didn't really have a lunchroom per se. So, except if you got lunch detention. So they would let us out, just free our whole grade or whatever lunch period that was, into downtown. That was a good and bad idea, But yeah, so, and that's kind of bumping into people down there. I'm downtown a whole lot more, 5 days a week going to high school. And when I really only went downtown with my family, because we grew up poor, you go downtown to go buy something real quick to come back. You go do some business like at some office, city hall or something, or court system or something like that. Then you go home. And now I'm suddenly down there 5 days a week throughout the school year, being exposed to all kinds of stuff. We in Chinatown one day, we catching the trains and going to Temple University area. I'm walking all around downtown, meeting different backgrounds of people. But hope I got that. Like, oh, that was coherent. I'm just kind of like
Yeah.
remembering it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your background shapes, who you are today. So how has that influenced your religion?
You said, sorry, how's it what?
How has it influenced your religion or your religious beliefs?
Oh, interesting. So this is, it's funny because like speaking of Love Now Media and Josh Duncan, let me go like there and come back. Um, there's this. So last year I got tapped by the organization because they saw me out in community work over the years and was like, do you want to train to be a facilitator for a series an anti-violence series we have called Heart of the City. But part of that training was learning how to help people tell their story through love and about the Black image and about our image in media and gun violence. But we had to take a workshop on telling our own stories too. It was a short workshop. It was 90 minutes, but it did a lot for me. So
Mm.
it like how to tell my own story. And it's funny you mentioned that because I was just talking to a friend the other day about like spiritual anchoring. So in my household, neither one of my parents were like heavy on religiosity, but they were both spiritual people. Like my dad's family was Jehovah's Witness. My mom's family was General Baptist, South Carolina style Christian. And but I had a wider family too of friends out in the streets and some people who was in my family who took on Islam. And in high school, I had my god sisters are Buddhist, Cambodian Buddhist. So for me, early on, I was a reader, and I was a open, like a very compassionate, open hearted child. So I'm listening to everybody's perspectives around me. I'm watching documentaries. I'm
Mm.
reading different kind of books early on, and I'm starting to see all these patterns of oneness.
Right.
And I'm where many people are where many people around me were pointing out a lot of contradictions and ways to like just kind of argue or bicker or whatever. And sometimes it's like necessary to kind of get to certain points. But I kept seeing like commonalities and especially peace. People always ask me, "What's your religion?" I say peace. I ain't even trying to sound like uh uh generic or whatever, but
Hmm.
I feel like that's what a lot of people in ancient days were really saying.
Yeah.
So my thing is, for me, I'm a spiritual person, and I do go on my intuition. I believe there's a higher power, a source. You can call it a god, a algorithm, a grand super ego, whatever you believe. I believe in that for you, and for me, I cross roads at we ain't the highest consciousness, and so I'm not a religious person, but I'm not an anti-religious person. I'm definitely a spiritual person, and I've taken bits and pieces of my understanding, beliefs, and how I walk my path from different systems over life. I've been a practicing Christian under uh, Jehovah Witnessism and the
Okay.
general nature of like Baptist family. I've been I've practiced Islam. I've practiced Buddhism. I'm saying it past tense because to me, I didn't leave any of those things. There are some members in those groups who would say, that's not, you can't do that. But there are some members who would be like, it's up to God. I can't say which, as long as you're trying to find peace. So for me, I'm a spiritual person. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I love that. I love that. So that leads me into who are some of your teachers slash master teachers who you learn from?
man. We were talking about this earlier. Um, you want to start with the ones I learned from in real life in front of me, the ones I learned from reading about them or being taught about them? Or do you mean like either way?
It's, yeah, either way. Like what stands out to you right now?
My parents and my grandparents. Like I'm really glad to have been like my parents. They were some spectacular people. No one's perfect, but they taught a lot of lessons indirectly and directly that stick with me to this day. So my parents and my grandparents, like, I didn't, I don't know my mother's I don't know my grandfather on my mother's side very well because he died when I was really little. Family staying strong, so they came down as values. My grandmother on her side, my maternal grandmother, knew her. She passed on Christmas Eve-ish, or on Christmas Eve itself when I was like 8 or 9. But like being around her and being encouraged by her and taught love, compassion, and family values. And the same thing with my grandmother on I mentioned earlier on my dad's side, who was like a strong values missionary, and her husband, my grandfather, who was similar. Um, Outside of my family, man, uh, I got put onto reading early and caught on early. So a lot of my mentors, there are people in life like especially when I met later on past my teenhood, like Mama Gail. That's Gail Clouden. She's a Philadelphia superhero. Like some people that especially black folk uh that see this video in Philly, they'll be like, "Yep, Mama Gail." Her husband Horace Clouden. They're just geniuses. They're like 40-year veterans and organizing and helping people, like feeding, clothing, sheltering, advocating, all kind of stuff. Um,
Okay.
other people include, I gotta give a shout out to Gabriel Bryant. I told her this before, but Gabe Bryant is an organizer. Say that's like some certain people I only like giving them titles, man, because he's an organizer, an activist, an advocate for Black folks wellness, mental health, in the hip hop world, all kind of stuff.
Okay.
Um, Greg Corbin, aka Just Greg, aka Greg Corbin Speaks. He was the founder of Philly Youth Poetry Movement, which changed my life. I was getting involved in a lot of things I shouldn't have, to be honest, in and out of the street stuff and anger and emotional.
Mm.
Uh, getting one day, I was in 12th grade, and my friend, I was like 17, about to turn 18. One of my friends in ninth grade, I was in 12th grade. My friends in ninth grade named Gio. Shout out to George Stovall, Gio. Um, he said, "Yo, you want to go to a poetry show?" Now, me still being like kind of in Southwest Bowl mode. I'm like, I ain't trying to go to that. It's corny. But secretly, like most young boys who like hip hop, I'm writing in my journal, calling it hip hop. Which so I go with him to the Rotunda, um, a legendary venue we call it like the Art Church. It's kind of how it feels like down 40th Street. The same 40th Street I spent my childhood running up and down, going to the arcade. Um, and it was all these other youth there. Greg Corbin was the director of the program. Poetry slams, meetups, writing groups, us basically writing out our feelings in front of people and talking about them and people crying and like being whole people, which I didn't see a whole lot of in the hoods that I was from and in my family, for real, for real. Although it was a loving family in general. Um, but people, man, those are some of the people I've met in my life, especially here in Philly, who to me are like master teachers. Now, folks whose writings and teachings and lectures and me being referred to their ideas. One I gotta say is Dr. Francis Cress Welsing and Dr. Joy DeGry, formerly Joy DeGry Leary. They're psychologists and researchers, almost I'm gonna say sociologists,
Okay.
who talk about the state of being of the Black mind in society, past, present, and potentially going forward. Their ideas were heavy on me. Um, Wayne Chandler, he wrote a book called Ancient Future. I can't put that book in no summary. Y'all just go get that book. It's metaphysics, history, culture. It poses more questions than it poses. It poses more pondering and illusions and finalities.
Okay. I'm
Um,
interested in checking his
yeah,
books out. Wayne Chandler, Ancient Future.
yeah. I wish I had the
Okay.
copy around me, but let me tell you how serious I am about this book. Hopefully he sees this and gives me a. But it's the
Right. Come
only
on.
book I've bought. There's like three books in my whole life I can think of that I probably bought like twice. I bought this book like four times, and I gave it away and got
Mm.
like three times I had one copy, but I gave it away like every single person. Lie to you not, every single person that I ever loaned this book to, their life shifted and they put it on that book. And I also want to name two more because Khalil Gibran, who wrote The Prophet, a poetic
Okay.
book, a poetic ethical book. Beautiful. And one more is Ernesto Lee. He wrote a book called Space, Time, and Reality.
Okay.
Um, how about I turn
Got,
around and
you
grab
have
that?
a copy of
But
it?
it's somewhere. Hold up. I might just. I read that. Oh yeah, hold up.
Yeah. Go ahead. Grab that.
I don't think I have it. Let me not speak too soon. Hold up. No, no.
Yes.
So so me and my friends, we're really sherry carry when it comes to our books. So I don't ever know which one's in my crib because they'll come over and borrow it. But
Yeah.
that particular one is not in my possession right now.
That's a sign of a true reader when you're like, yo, you gotta check this out. I'll just give it to you. Just you gotta read it. Like
Yeah.
that means you really love the book.
Yeah.
You
I
know.
kind of mad I ain't got it because the illustration on the cover is kind of dope. But yeah, I like people to see
Okay.
stuff visually so they can be like, I'm in the bookstore and I see that junk.
Oh yeah, I can pull it up. You said Ernesto Lee, Space
Yeah, and that's
Time and
totally space
Reality.
time already. So this dude is wild. So he I'm really big into history, science, philosophy, psychology. When you study them all, you kind of start seeing a lot of commonalities behind them. But
Yeah.
this book, he has a master's degree in science, but he's also a master. He's like a master of philosophy. So he like brings these philosophical notions to physics and science. It makes really difficult Einsteinian style physics and things. It's really hard for to grasp into like a philosophical, practical, understandable approach. And it's like, yeah,
Right.
dope, really dope.
See,
Shout out,
I
for
oh yeah, I agree when you say like the pattern. You they all come down to a certain commonality once you can catch the pattern. You know.
yes, indeed.
So, and it like we were saying earlier, there's many ways to find the truth. There's many different ways to be enlightened.
That's it.
This one right
No, yes,
here.
indeed. Like, yeah, it's funny you said that because all roads lead to Rome. I think one of the biggest follies of the modern, ain't just the modern world, but because we're so interconnected today. So I guess I mean modern in that way. But one of the biggest follies, one of the biggest issues is there being an assumption that there's one way for one narrow way, and you can usually tell when a certain way is not like the only true way because people are trying so hard as mortals to fight and hurt people for it, or like if it's the truth, it's just going to be the truth. The universe is going to agree with it.
Right.
Um, and though sometimes we have the truth, but the way we look at it be way off. Like that's why there's so many denominations to religions and various politics and stuff like that, because people's cultures and person their spirituality, for example, and create the religion. All everybody swears they're doing the purest version of it, even though they be reading the same books and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a lot of all roads lead to Rome type situation, right? Like if your intention is peace and clarity, and you really mean it, life, the universe, your own whatever is going to lead you towards peace. Because
Right.
I think peace is the truth. If you add peace, you're in a state of the realest, truest, authentic you can be in. Yeah.
Right. We mentioned it a little bit where it's like feeling is the secret. You know what I mean? And that's something that I've been learning. Actually, is it Neville Goddard or Goddard Neville? I always like mix it up, but he wrote a book called "Feeling Is the Secret,"
Mm,
and it's one of those manifestation techniques where
yeah.
you focus on the feeling first, and then everything comes out
Yes.
of that. You know, and so that's how I approach information, and I believe you said that as well. Like, how does it make me feel? How does this information resonate with me? Even when it comes to far out stuff like conspiracies, a lot of people want to get into that. Um, even the whole Tepper situation, like, how does it make you feel? And that's what I want to get into. But I don't want
Here
to
we go.
forget because I thought you said
Hold up.
something really, really good, like how you went into it. But before we get there, just some more books that you mentioned, which was seven natural laws.
Oh, the her, oh, the seven hermetic axioms, also sometimes called the seven natural laws. There's multiple books that are about them, but there's like three books that I love. The Ancient Future by Wayne Chandler has a great section in there on those. It's actually mostly based around that. Um, then there's the older book called The Kybalion by three initiates. And then there's the ancient book that's attributed to being written by the ancient New Egyptian or Kemite called uh, Thoth, Tahuti, or Hermes, and that's called the Emerald Tablets of Tahuti.
Right.
And that's like way more esoteric, way longer, but like sure, and then read the Kybalion and get pretty far. There you go, right there. That one with the golden, yeah,
Oh,
the gold circle. Yeah, I don't know which by three initiates.
okay.
Yeah,
Three
I
initiates.
actually have that
What's
version.
that? What does that mean? Is that like what they
So
call a pseudonym? Or
here come the Illuminati rumors. But
okay,
so
okay.
I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. But like three initiates are three people who are constantly argued about who they might be, who compiled all this ancient knowledge from various different sources, ancient Egypt and ancient Greece, and um just ancient world in general. They compiled this knowledge into this book, and they didn't like create the seven natural laws or hermetic axioms, but they like put them into this book in a Western for us to understand form. People are arguing to this day because book was written in like 1910 or 20 or 30, some early 1900s time, and maybe even before that. But no, I think it's early 1900s. People have been arguing
Okay.
for decades on who these three initiates are, and some people, because back in those days, like in 1910, like one out of nine all background was involved in a lodge, a Masonic lodge, or some, which has a different meaning than folks think it means. It's not. Had to do with labor, fraternities, and work, like how to get a job. So, and how to protect yourself from like political stuff and from getting slaughtered by like the gang warfare that was going on and racial stuff and whatever. But like 1 in 9 men was either in or affiliated with a lodge, Masonic or similar lodge, Shriners or whatever else. And so these the kind of wording used in that title and parts of the book match up with the culture of like Masonic things and such. Which so like we ain't getting into that today, but that's something else that I like delve into and have some peers and stuff who are involved in those worlds. But it's not anyway. That's another conversation because that's going to cause a whole bunch of weird comments under your video.
Oh no, I love it, and that's exactly the type of stuff I want to talk about. But I guess what I can say about that situation is that they just know what we're learning now. What they've been trying to keep a secret, which is simply you can create your own reality, and this is a hologram, if you will. And so we have more power than we were told we have. And I
Oh,
feel like
indeed.
that's something that they learn as, they learn that easily. That's something that they practice and they study. They learn from the Egyptians and all the mystery schools and things like that. So they were groomed
Yeah,
with that information, and that's something that we're just trying to digest. Like, oh, you do really? We can like. So they kind of
yeah,
we make them more powerful by assuming all these extra like mystical things.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
You
Like Jay
know,
Z's in the Illuminati. He's a rich black man that does this all the time. I ain't saying whatever the Illuminati is, if he is or he ain't. It's not about who is, and it's the fact that people jump to conclusions just because people have positions of social power. But
yeah,
yeah, like in my quest to understand spirituality, religion, and history better, like from like a young age, like 12 to 17, especially, I was reading so widely and finding old books and going to the library, questions who had the G and the compass on their car. And I learned a lot of things early on. So by the time I got to my 17, 18, 19, going into adulthood and the whole like return of the everything's the Illuminati culture and the internet explosion, I was like, I wasn't even really into arguing with people because I noticed that there was, you can't really because they're not going to, one, I don't know everything. And two, they're not going to go and like read all this stuff and understand the historical context that I or others might know.
that's the
And
scary part, though. That's actually the scary part. Is when people like follow the media so that you only know what they tell you. Like if you don't go any deeper, then you'll only have like a negative view of everything. You know what I mean?
oh no, for real, no, for real. Yes, that's a serious problem. And then there's like planned opposition, where one philosopher and political scientist that I love is his name's Noam Chomsky, and he wrote a book called Manufacturing Consent. But before I knew that he was a political theorist and scientist, or before I knew he was a like a philosopher, I knew him to be a linguist. And linguistics is what got me really into history and philosophy and even metaphysics. But I grew up with like 4 or 5 speech impediments. They never really go away, but you just gain better control over it and you learn how to talk better. But that's a whole. He wrote this book called Language and Problems of Knowledge. It's a transcription of a lecture he gave in Nicaragua at a college there in Managua. It's actually called the Managua Lectures because it's in Managua, Nicaragua. And Language and Problems of Knowledge, we talked about the nature of language and how it's used to, in the media, especially in government, to convey an idea or to, and what he was using, what he was like the studying in there was how it's used in overall kind of like negative ways to basically control people, to influence them. But in studying these things and seeing what he was exposing about how people use language on the masses, I got a reverse engineering mindset. So I'm like, oh wow, like this is the nature of language, and this is A, B, and C. But when it comes to, hold on, sorry, I want to find a little tangent there. I want to make sure I hone in on your question, because I brought up Noam Chomsky for a reason, not as a linguist, but as a philosopher and a political scientist.
Oh yeah, yeah, I'm with you. This is
Now,
all
what were you?
connecting. Yes.
I want to make sure I wrap that back around though, because I had like, what you asked me? My bad.
No,
What was your
go
last question?
on.
Huh?
No, keep going.
Oh,
I know I
go
want to
ahead.
tie back Jay-Z into that because I know I started the tangent by, saying the media has a
Oh,
way of controlling what we learn. So yeah.
there you go. There you go. That part. So he wrote this. He wrote this book. Had a lecture series. Had classes on and documentaries, which everybody should look up. Please do. Manufacturing Consent, a book written by him and one other fellow. Like it's the way that the mass media uses language, psychology, fear, desire, and other human urges that they study to get people to influence them, because they can't control anybody, but they can influence you. It's almost like control. It's just as evil control, evil influence, to get you to believe things or not believe things. They omit information in here. It's a beautiful science when you look at it as an ugly side is something beautiful. Like when you're teaching a child or whatever, you don't tell them every single adult thing. You have to omit some stuff. And to be honest, some people lie to their children sometimes. White lies, to kind of get past a certain point or whatever. But like, I believe in like telling children the truth as much as possible. But I get it, it's reality. But the science of how we like teach our peers or get taught or teach children is some of the same kind of knowledge of that the media uses on us, right? Like we ain't got to go too far to see how that works. The stories after 9/11 and how it was used to take away our rights and freedoms and restrict our motion and how we do stuff. The story after the COVID virus was announced and how it was manipulated by how companies, media, and folks that want to sell us things and restrict how things are used is sometimes more important than what's actually happened.
Right.
Because so I'm not here to argue with the events, but I'm here to talk about
Let me
how
add one
propaganda.
to it.
Yeah.
Cryptocurrency. Like the way the media is slaughtering cryptocurrency is just so sad.
They tripping.
If you ask anybody
Yeah.
on the street what it is, they're gonna be like, "No, it's a scam. I don't want a part of
Oh
it." No.
man, they don't know.
And it's like, yo, really? You're missing out. And
Yeah.
so I always tell people that I meet about that. But anyway, continue.
Yeah. Man, listen. Open a can of worms. Look, because I'm not gonna sit here and go in all about crypto and blockchain technology and its security and all that stuff. But I'll say this though. See, what is it? CBDCs. My fellow weed smokers, but CBDCs,
Right.
which is central bank digital currencies, which are semi cryptocurrencies controlled by central banks that are controlled by governments. Like the United States the United States passed some legislation recently, and more to come on us having a digital dollar. But it takes a big scare or a big incentive to get like most of a nation to switch all of their or most of their money from paper and regular into digital dollars. Not a good idea under a government like this. It's a great idea if you're in a trusting, loving society and you can we're not in that society. So, for those that want to look into the social credit system that's currently active in China. Study that. And you might say, oh, it won't come here or it can't happen here. You could be correct, but you should still know what's possible under a large half continent spanning government over millions and there billions of people, because we're in a large half continent spanning government over millions and one day to be a billion people, maybe. But cryptocurrency though, like just study. Like what I encourage anybody is life can feel real fast paced. I get it. You might have children. You might have whatever responsibilities you have, or your view on life could be whatever. Take your time. Get out, less Instagram, gossipy conversations, whatever you spend your little bits of time on, like take some of that away. Still have fun with your life, but go study stuff. When you hear about something new, don't just watch a bunch of YouTube clips of conspiracy videos and hashtags amongst your friends in an echo chamber of your social media reality. Go study, go look study widely, study opposing views and agreeing views and third party views that don't agree or disagree. Just study, and the more you know from different sources, you got a better chance, at least, especially disagreeing sources, to start finding out the details in the mix. Because what they disagree at and agree at, you find, just like be study, man. Like look, it went, especially as black people or so-called black, whatever you call yourself. I understand. Um, Basically, it went from nigga, I will kill you if you read, to nigga, I'd rather die than read. Just a few generations for many people. Some people who won't even pick up a book, their great 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 grandfather was like a scholar and a professor or a person that died helping people learn how to read. And they don't even know this sometimes. And it's I don't blame people except for their own free will, but like I get how we got conditioned and programmed. I'm not blaming nobody for if your literacy rate is poor, you don't feel like you're a strong reader. I get that. It was by design, right? Or if you have dyslexia or whatever, all this fringe stuff, I get that. But the average read, study while you still can, while the books are still available, while the internet is still somewhat free-ish, right? Aside from the algorithms and things, don't don't just be on algorithm controlled Instagram and Facebook scrolling at things that the system has curated for you to see. That's good too. But then like you come across a keyword, look up, like wonder about it. Like, I don't know this word, geopolitics. What's that? And like look into it. Yourself, or you will become a deeper mental slave to what's going on in society. You see it going on around you if you're woke to any degree. I don't use that terminology much because it's testy, but yeah, like no one knows. Like some people just happen to be specialized in certain areas of knowledge. I am. Some of my colleagues are. Some of my master teachers and people I see as heroes are. You to study too, so we can all be in the mix, talking to each other, and sharing ideas, and debating and arguing and agreeing and moving forward. Not in these boxes based on our emotions and our biases and what we need to have be right so we can feel okay emotionally, which is what it really all is at the core.
So let's get
Pardon my rant.
into, oh no, it's okay. Let's get into it kind of ties into with the Hotepper questions and then leading into like the psychosis. So my question with the Hotepper is that an appropriate word? And also, well, how is that different from a empowered black person?
Because I'm laughing, y'all, because she and I discussed this, and this is a common conversation in black organizing and circles and things and cultural whatever circles and sectors. I can answer this. It's just like I get. I'm not tired of answering it. It's just like So, okay, so look, I'm gonna address the term first, and I'm gonna address the nature of it and what you said. So me personally, I shy away from using the word hotep in any negative way, except for like incidentally or on the fly negatively around friends that kind of know, because we get what we're saying. The average black American today, especially well, of all age brackets and all backgrounds, from rural to suburban to urban, from churchy to street, from young to old, the first time they ever heard the word hotep was not the original meaning of the word, which is an ancient pre-Egyptian Kemetic word, which means peace, a way of peace, or a greeting of peace, like salam alaikum, or shalom and shalom alaikum. Um, it just means peace. And it's a beautiful word that has a massively long history to it, like 8 to 10,000 years, 4,000 of years of it up. And anyway, that the word itself is great. But most Black Americans and most people alive right now, they've only heard this word, or the first time they heard this word, and probably the only time for some too, is negative. So when they hear that word, it's an adjective now for something terrible. Hotep nigga, hotep lady, they're hotepping, no tep, fotep, slow tep. And it's like, I get that. Now, that's one side. Most folks tend to stop right there and they just come at people for using a word wrong, and they don't address the why it became used that way, which unto itself, and stopping right there, is hotep nigga shit, right? So we're gonna go further. Um, a Hotep nigga, under my understanding of it, is a person that it's usually a black American, but it's a black person that's hurt by, understandably, hurt by the system, and they've learned more about the cultures loosely of Africa, like Egypt usually, or West Africa, but usually Egypt kind of ancient Egypt kind of oriented, and they pick up traits. Remember, they have PTSD, post traumatic slave disorder, and post traumatic slave syndrome. Thank you, Dr. Joy DeGraw Leary, for coining that, I believe. They take the same uh, uh, oppressive, self-harming, other harming factors from their religion they probably are leaving to go into like African style spiritualities, like Christianity or Islam for Black Americans, like a strict version of that. Hellfire, damnation. They're like super mad against gay people, super mad against women, and really strict and narrow about their views, and it's kind of shallow. And again, they have PTSD like crazy. We all do, I believe, like 99% of us, but different kinds and manifestations of that. But like how they take out theirs is like this like pseudo intellectual surface level understanding of our histories and cultures out of like Northeast Africa, aka now Egypt, mixed in with some West African stuff like Yoruba, Nigerian, and they take that and they get, because their value systems are locked in, like Western style application of Christian or Islamic culture mixed in with European culture, mixed in with like male chauvinism, has them like be misogynists, sexist. And they usually got like a technical way of kind of arguing it based on some like vague spiritual, cultural Egyptian thing. A lot of them argument on for them, just saying like a lot of them do come from a place of like they really mean what they're saying, and they think it's completely true, and that their version of it, like a Lutheran Christian, they swear their version of their understanding of their culture in the past is true, and the Catholic is wrong, and the Baptist and the Episcopalian is wrong, or whatever. So Hotep niggas are just like lost Black people, especially men, but women too, and non-binary, depending on how you identify. They're lost Black people that think they found themselves by going into planned opposition. So that's another thing about manufacturing consent, right? Is you have the things that the system would love you to believe to be the easiest slave to control, like nigga shit or coon shit, whether street shit or like way beyond W.E.B. Du Bois style, like integration, like, you know, mentality. That's like Uncle Ruckus, basically. And then there's the other end is planned for us too. Historical revisionism based living and thinking. It's like it's a grasping for inclusion in something. It's a grasping for meaning, for the word is identity. It's a grasping for identity, as opposed to going within oneself and just being whatever one is. It's I am this, we are this, and you better be this because this is who we are. And they be dead wrong, and it'd be hard to have conversations with them sometimes because they've studied a whole bunch, but they don't always realize, because they're not always like consciously doing this, right? That they've studied down a narrow lane, a narrow interpretation of what they're studying, which is why they carry on so many of the harsh things that, at least in this chapter of being looking like this. This chapter of looking like this was heavily influenced by like European and Arab colonialism and slavery. So they take on the worst of those cultures, which is broken Islam for the Arabs and broken Christianity. I'm big on my adjectives because I also want to offend true Christians, whatever that means, but like peaceful Christians and Muslims, progressive, helpful, loving, Muhammad and Jesus like of the book, like Christians and Muslims, versus those who just like are just dickheads. And so it's you know, so it's people have their own fears in their culturally, in their family, in their group, or in themselves, and they superimpose those fears through a system that they see other people joining into. So instead of actually addressing themselves and growing themselves, as we all have to and continue to do, is an ongoing path. They get into a club and they get crowd thinking and group think, and they do mob mentality about stuff. And when you ask them key questions that about something specific they're said, They answer with usually a deflection or a misdirection or something related using the same vocabulary. That's a common thing of the hotep nigga, which I would like us not to. Well, I ain't saying you shouldn't use it. I personally don't like either the word hotep or nigga. I use these words. I can still not like them. I use them less and less frequently because we're all cultured. No excuse. I'm black and from the hood, so I might flip into whatever talk. But putting the word hotep and nigga together is so problematic. But what's more
Yeah.
problematic is people acting like hotep niggas and then getting mad about the words being used that way, right? So yeah. Hope that was that too long.
No, I think
Okay.
it kind of goes into the psychosis question, which at the foundation, I'll say it again, I believe that your beliefs create your reality. And so we've been programmed to believe that we're less than, we're
Yep.
inhumane, we get sick faster, we're, yeah, we
Shout out
have,
to yeah.
oh yeah, what's it called? Can you read it? Post
post
traumatic syndrome.
traumatic post traumatic slave syndrome (PTSS). Please go on YouTube, y'all, immediately after this, and bookmark when you put in put in PTSS Joy, Dr. Joy, and it'll a blue video will pop up. It's about an hour long. Let it change your life real quick.
I'm gonna
Psychological
watch that. Yeah.
psychological dig that we all need to. Oh man, put a throw a trap beat on and just get some popcorn. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, so like your beliefs seriously create your reality, and sometimes that manifests in wanting to be superior. You know what I mean? And
yes,
I'm like, yeah, I love melanin magic too, but I'm not excluding other races or trying to elevate black people as like the superior. I mean, self love is healthy. When we get together, we like to talk. You know what I mean? But I just mean at a hotel level where it's like f the white man or devils and all these kind of things that happens, and it
yeah,
kind of leads people into this group where it's just toxicity and separation. I'm all about wholeness. So, like I was saying, how do we get to wholeness is another one of the questions. But I'm gonna slow down. And what do you want to address from what I said?
um, you said a lot there in a great way. I went through some of those phases myself as I was coming up, just being around certain political, ideological, spiritual groups and things like this. Taking amazing. Again, I'm a big reverse engineer, and I've always been like a technical and critical thinker and a compassionate person. I believe in intuition, my spirit, and I can see the bullshit in certain stuff so early on. And not that people are trying to bullshit; they truly believe what they're saying. So it's like not everybody, but a lot, right? Because they're doing the same thing they did in the religion that they followed. The nation, the angry version of the religion they followed, they just took that demeanor, no therapy, and crossed it right over into culturalism. They became went from like religious hellfire. You're gonna burn in hell, whether they're black Christian or black Muslim, in the broken way, right? No offense to those who know how to actually be a peaceful Jesus or Muhammad, like peaceful version of them person, right? There's time for wars. There's time for fighting, but you're talking about if you know what I'm talking about. They, but yeah, you touched on so many things there, but there is it all comes down to the same. No matter if you're Chinese, you white, no matter if you're in the 1800s now or 1800s BC, people do the same kind of things where a fear that my group, if I am promoted to me, if my consent is manufactured, that my group is going to be harmed or disappeared based on how you say it will in this lecture, this book, this I don't know much else, or I am programmed, conditioned, indoctrinated to not look much further beyond things that mostly agree with my already set. It's called confirmation bias, basically, and a lot of people are suffering deeply from confirmation bias. Um, they can't. They're not stupid because it's not about intelligence. Stupid just means willfully ignorant. They're willfully ignorant, which is the nature of like, but it's also because it's like they don't know what they don't know. And they people look at what's familiar sometimes, like this kind of agrees with my sentiments about this group. Women should be secondary to men, and they are the baby holder. They're kind of more delicate than us, so and they start drawing all these other conclusions. All women can't even have children. All don't want to. But the idea is that it's a lot of fast and deep conclusions drawn based on some perceived actual factuals, right? So
Yeah.
yeah,
And
but
it's not only that, it's like how we've been programmed to think. It's like, especially when you get to the men and women thing, it's like, first of all, which one would you choose, masculine or feminine? You ask any person that, which one would you choose? Uh Drawing or m- math? Which one would you choose? Art or spelling? Whatever. If you divide it down masculine and feminine lines, I feel like majority of the time people are going to pick the masculine thing. You know what I mean? Because it's like more attractive, and I run away from my feelings, and men were taught that. They were taught to view feelings as a weakness. So
yeah, and
you're
this
going
is
to naturally yeah, you're going to naturally pick things that are more masculine because you're already running away from femininity and you feel like that's weak. Like, why draw with pink when I could go ride my
yeah,
bike? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're going to choose all the
yeah.
masculine things. And so I feel like people don't realize that they do that even at the small level. But when you get to your feelings, it's the same thing. It's like, do you value
Yeah,
feelings as a strength or a weakness? How do you view your feelings? So
yeah,
how can you view women if you consider them so emotional? Do you even love your own emotions?
yeah.
You know?
Most people, maybe not most. I can't say most. I met the whole world, but the trend is looking like a huge chunk of humanity, especially in the West, especially in America, the United States, are terrified of themselves. But that manifests in different ways. And that's
Yeah.
like I'm a heterosexual, straight, urban raised black male who was raised poor in the ghetto and got involved in all kind of stuff. So what I'm supposed to be, based on the construct, and what I actually have become is two very different things. And where I'm going, I believe, right? Because there's always room for improvement, right? Um, so basically, man, you said a lot there, but I'm 34, and a lot of my peers, I'm gonna say like top the 40-year-old men, straight black males or not, American or not, are terrified. They're terrified of exposing to well, there's two levels, right? Sometimes have both of these issues because it's PTSD. Like the whole nation has post traumatic stress syndrome disorder or syndrome at least or something like post traumatic stress something. I can't say it is whatever. Yeah. So but basically, there is a taught social construct. We all know about it. People lie about it a lot, but they know that like when you see a mother or a father smack the shit out their son who's 3 and say stop crying like a little bitch,
Right.
there's two things are happening there. He's having his suppressed as something bad to show on a physical and outward level, or even having those feelings. So that's two things. Some people are afraid to have their feelings because they were treated so poorly as children, societally, or in family, or they saw examples in the media where they could get over or like move ahead by suppressing them within, and vice versa. Or rather, on the other side, on the external side, like there's very few men who walk into a group of men they don't know, or even they know, and be like, "I'm sad," or um, "I'm." You can say I'm angry. You could, but if you show sadness of certain sorts or certain contexts, you will be externally ostracized, attacked psychologically, maybe even physically. And it's like,
Mm.
no matter what, this is the hard part because everybody's not going to be able to follow along with this part based on their physicality or whatever. But you gotta stand up for yourself and just be you anyway. Like it took me, I don't know, like teenagehood, 15, 16, 17, maybe 19, maybe 20 to really like, I'm still moving through this, right? To like, I don't give a fuck what you think about how I feel. It's how I feel. Again, I have the privilege of being like a life of athleticism and strong. I can defend myself. I fought people down, and I'll take a. I'm witty, and I can make jokes. I can crush your ego if I need to. So that's a privilege that but I gained those privileges from being in
Mm.
battle with other masculine energies in society. Seven hermetic axioms thing real fast. Those seven natural laws. One of those seven natural laws, I'm gonna use the word axioms, which is different, which is the word laws is used a lot for these, but the seven hermetic axioms. Axiom is something upon which reality basically hinges itself on, like an axle. Is the law of gender, which is that all things, not just people, not just gender, like a man and a woman or whatever, but like um, all things have gender. They have a masculine and feminine, or divine masculine and divine feminine aspect to them, and there's an interchange and a spectrum in between. Um, there's so many, there's infinite, but there's so many manifestations of how that actually works. I'm gonna give like some like loose understandings of it. Like I'm sitting on a chair right now, my favorite chair, right? And it is in the, you could say in a certain way, in the masculine force, it's a stack of wood and metal. That's just what it literally is. It's physically hard as that, right? In the feminine force, conceptually, it's a chair, because I, and maybe you and others who see it as a chair, something that has a back and a seat to sit down on and use. But that rock by the beach that I always sit on, that's just naturally shaped that way, is my favorite chair.
Mhm.
It was designed to be that way, but I feminine force see it situationally as a chair, right? We can go on all day. Language has, we know this if anybody study French or English, I mean French or Spanish or even English school language, right? Not just for things and people, but like even things beyond people. Like, you know, um, everything is composed and comprised of a feminine and masculine force mixture, balanced in nature and imbalanced depending on situation and perception of it or self. So men who are, I'm gonna say this like in the most like, everybody understands of different understandings. Cisgender male men like myself, in this society today, who are heterosexual, cis het, right? There is a mass. Everybody got a different kind of mass brainwashing. We got a particular kind of mass brainwashing, which is like a video the other day on masculinity, and I had just did a little study on it, and it like summed it up perfectly. It was talking about like uh, masculinity being far too hinged on what the women in society are doing, and not on what you're doing within yourself as a man or whatever that means. Because it's like this conversation is hard to have sometimes, because there's so many different interpretations of what that means. And some folks try to rush past that and go, a masculine man is a big burly guy. It's okay to defend himself and fight people, but everybody's not shaped like that. Everybody's not, demeanor isn't like that, right? So masculinity and femininity. I wish my homie Omar, shout out to Om the rapper, Omar
Okay.
Samir Roper. He is a master. I'm gonna highlight you by interviewing him, but he's a master describer of male, female, in nature and people and concept, masculine and feminine, man and woman, and way he's much more poetic with it. We're very mixed up in today's world. Like a lot of people think that the only idea of a masculine and feminine man or woman is what they learned, what we learned in this society in the past few hundred years from broken in Christianity, and trying to survive from that. Um, broken Europeanism. Uh, that's not the case at all. Like we come out of societies that have wildly different views on what
Yeah.
masculinity and femininity are. Like we directly come from them, like indigenous American and indigenous African peoples that niggas don't study,
Yeah.
because the nigga mentality says I'd rather die than study, right? Versus the just, it's a program, right? So yeah, I implore people to just like read, like look up, you just Google it, like gender and masculinity and femininity, and pick a culture like Central India Hindus, or
Yeah.
the Cherokee. Read beyond what you think you might know, or what you think is masculine and feminine, the traits of a man, the traits of a woman, because you're probably wrong, or rather your narrow box version is harming you, because you're trying to fit everybody on the planet, past, present, and future, into those boxes, and that's some crazy ass bullshit. Um, it's
Yeah.
apparent once you just look beyond your box, but it's
I
hard to see
think
that.
it's, yeah, I don't think one man is a masculine man. I think you're a masculine and feminine man, like
Yeah,
in a yin and yang sense, in the holistic of your soul essence and
yeah,
your mind. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like you don't think one way. It's all interwoven. Like,
yeah,
you might have a stronger masculine presence or whatever, or you might be more oriented certain ways, but it's really an internal structure that you have to work on. And
Yeah.
not necessarily even work on, but discover. And by that way, you'll be more aware of it and able to function,
Yeah.
better
So,
in society.
something that sorry, excuse me.
Oh no, you good.
Oh, something that I want to use this term for the sake of this. I hate saying this term, but something that Hotep niggas, toxic Christians, and toxic Muslims in the black community have in common. I'll listen to my adjectives, toxic ones. There's always somebody who's like that exact person I'm going to describe. Who's what you mean? I mean, there's good Muslims and Christians. Well, of course, like so. Anyway, but basically toxic people that have attached their identity to a particular interpretation, denomination of a religion or a culture, which is the same thing. A religion is a spiritual culture.
Yeah.
Um, they have all the same, almost all the same views or considerations for women, men who are more in their comprehension, feminine. Like if a dude likes wears a pink shirt before Cameron or Kanye did, he must be gay, or
Right.
he's feminine. Like culturally stuck ideas. Like colors have completely different meanings in different cultures and parts of our own timeline.
Mhm.
Like um it's interesting. It's like there are even people that think that wearing too much red like this. I'm not a blood, Joe. I mean, no offense to the Bloods, but like I even got this red cup. It's all like coincidental. I just threw this hat on before the jump. But like people think that we're too much red at one point. I know people that actually thought that, like, if you wear so much red, it's a feminine to wear. It's too colorful. It's too vibrant. It's
To
like,
match, even matching, like a man shouldn't match. Like I
yeah,
feel like
which is
that's what my grandmother would say or something like
yeah.
that.
We come out of it's wild. We come out of cultures where matching was the joint. Like, but yeah, there's just a lot of confusion on because again, the average person has been not in general is in poverty, and poverty is by design, and part of that design to keep you in poverty is to make sure you're not educated. You don't want to be educated. So it's like black people, specifically black and poverty, creates people who like look at our names. All right. So it's like if I met a Chinese person named Juan Domingo, I'd be like, whoa, interesting name, Juan Domingo. Why are you Chinese? But my name's Paul Jackson. I love my name. It's my dad's name too. And I'm going to keep my name. I have other names as well from various rites of passage and things I believe. Um, but like basically, do I look Scottish? So like, so it's like Scots, Irish in my family and British, but do I look like a Jackson? Historically, of course not. And we don't really find it to be absurd on any level that we have these names. Even for those who like post-slave trade, most Black Americans that have an Islamic name or an Arabic name, it didn't come from because their ancestors were Islamic, which was heavily the truth on the west coast of Africa, or because they can trace their lineage back to no, they just got named that usually because they themselves had a different name and got renamed, or they had a father or they were born into that, but their father or granddad after Nation of Islam and Noble Drew Ali and other Muslim movements, Islamic movements. It's not like it's some ancient thing, right? It's like the Arabs enslaved us too, right? So before the Europeans, it's for much longer and probably much worse, but which is kind of hard to compare that horror. But these names we have, right? They are indicative of something that it should, but it doesn't make us more curious about why we have them and beyond just like we were slaves. That's probably why we should. There's reasons why a person would rename you into their cultural names. What are they trying to do with that? They're putting their values and traditions on you, like European style misogyny or homophobia. Not just people are gonna have all these conversations about what is and ain't right or what is and ain't under their view of what is and ain't whatever, right? But there's doing that. Then there's hatred and un being like specifically angry about where women are in society now and rising and where LQ
Yeah.
people are or where while not being as mad about like niggas shooting your neighborhood up, your cousin who sells dope, the shooter boy that killed that child, like all these things, like the
Right.
cops riding by and suddenly, I'm gonna use a kind of, I'm about to say a certain term, I'm about to say the cops ride by, you all tough against a young lady walking down the street, you trying to holler at her with 10 of your other boys, or you trying to intimidate the boy who seems like he's those, you think he's smarter than you, so you want to intimidate him, but then a white cop rides by and you bitch up. But that's the word I was getting ready to say, because even my programming about using that word is wrong, right? But it's like, but the point of what I'm saying is this
Yeah.
selective hypermasculinity, this selective stereotypical masculinity, and then there's like this passivity, which can be related to femininity, but that word is you again. It's not negative passivity, right? But like femininity is a femininity, divine femininity in the situational hermetic axiom sense, right? Not just like feminine woman is, as we use it now, is live and let live and let be the background, the stage before the actors, the universe's black background before the stars. And then the masculine energy would be the script and the actors on the stage, that blackness and directions that they're going in mathematics. So they're equal. They're reciprocal equals going on within us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I am in the on the masculine physical side, I'm a Homo sapien body talking to you with flesh that holds itself together, and but on the that's the masculine literal side. Like I this primate looking body with the 10 fingers, and then and then there's the feminine side of I am Paul. I'm Fro. I'm an ego and a spirit. I'm a situation talking to a situation. I'm both of these things. I can't be one without the other.
Right.
I am, right? I am, right? So we overcomplicate stuff based on hatred and the need to be right about things because a lot of people are terrified to go to a specific kind of hell after this. They was taught. So they have to lock everything into
Exactly.
a version of reality. We can get
Exactly.
into all that. Like some folks is like, yeah, I mean, of course, because the Bible said in the Quran, it said a lot of stuff you don't believe and you don't do. You're hypocrites. So it's like, it's a lot of things. Yeah, I'm a Bible
Fear.
reading ass boy growing up, and y'all liars. Like so,
Mm-hmm.
or hypocrites rather, not liars, but they're liars too. But if you're gonna do the thing, right?
It's the fear of it all that is disrupting the wholeness. I'm pretty not pretty sure, but I hear stories of the actual Jesus and what he really had to say. That
Yeah,
it's not necessarily in the Bible. And it's all about wholeness. I don't think he wanted or they wanted a religion after them. Their whole point was you can create, you can be a master, you can do what I'm doing. You know what I mean?
yeah,
We are one type of stuff, not let's be divided. A lot of things were put into the Bible, including hell, from what I hear. So it's just fear tactics so that we could follow others, follow the pyramid, follow who's at the top, the king, the president,
yeah.
you know.
Basically, it's like nobody allowed like tiny handful of like some super tiny handful of hyper scholars that was afforded all the different lineage pass downs of like nobody knows what happened back then, and nobody has the original version of their book. I don't care which religion you believe. Don't you can lie to yourself all you want to, but like anything written by the hand of man, even if it was the exact same thing that was written on the day it was written, is an interpretation. That's why they say the inspired word of God. So and people forget that at the same time they record other stuff going on. Like they didn't see no flood. You know what I'm saying? So basically there's a people confuse ancient style poetry, which is a useful mechanism for using personification and metaphors to pass on amazing messages of peace and self-reflection, with every single thing needing to be literal. Like literalists are dangerous to themselves and others, psychologically and physically for others. Like people who want to believe that every single thing they read in any spiritual text from any background is the literal. There's unicorns and dragons in the Bible. Like
Mhm.
there's there's giants. I ain't saying that none of these things can happen. Anything can be real, right? Maybe unicorn was a single horned
I'm about to say,
horse,
I believe
but
in
all I'm saying
dragons.
is, I mean, I don't disbelieve them to point out. I'm not rushing to back up that they're real. It's more the ethics of the sage like people, philosophers, and maybe prophets in these books, right? But people, that's not what most folks are seem to be doing. They're not trying to live like the human potential side of these people. They're trying to force you to believe so they can be more comfortable what they say they believe in their club. All they got to do
Mm.
is just W Jesus do, and then do that. I don't think you would like hellfire people or kill them or put a sword to their neck or call them a harlot, Jezebel, or a faggot or a nigger, and it's like I don't see him doing that. So how are you? It's interesting. Everybody always wants to be the fiercer. They treat
But you know,
they treat Jesus
oh, go ahead.
like a wimpy kid that they got by being his big bro, angry big bro. They don't realize that like they're saying he's God, right? And it's like, or at
Right.
least the son of God, depending on interpretation. He don't need your help.
Hmm.
He don't need your angry self to murder or insult or do anything to any other human being but yourself. It goes back to self. Y'all should read Psalms 82. The Bible is awesome if you even if you just want to read it for philosophy. Psalms 82:6. Ye are gods,
Yep, that's
but
my
you will
favorite.
die like the princes. What does that mean though? People understand like it's not like you're Jehovah God, the Almighty. A God is a creative being in the image of something greater. But anyway, but it's so many pieces, man. But
Not just the
people
God
want
part
to
in
be.
the
Sorry, go ahead.
Bible. I was gonna say, to tie into that, why it's contradictory is like, okay, Jesus is like you said, the big brother, right? But then God is like the angry, like he's about to beat you up, and he will call you a faggot. Like I feel like he would. Like, have you the Old Testament is very much like rape them, go ahead, in my
Yeah,
name, like you
I'm gonna
can
be.
have whatever you
Yeah,
want, you know.
it's how you can
And it
tell in
sets
certain
up,
parts.
yeah, and it kind of like sets up, like I say, you beliefs create your reality. It sets up where we are today, like the
Yeah,
war, the slavery. Why it's okay to
yeah,
do any of these things is because you read it in
yes,
the Bible,
indeed.
and
Ephesians 6:5.
yeah.
Slaves
Why?
be
What's
unto your
Ephesians?
masters. Ephesians 6:5. Slaves be unto your masters. I'm change the context. Slaves be unto your masters as basically love your master as you love Christ. Love your master as you would love Christ or other people, right? And people take that and run with it. That was a major misquoted, misinterpreted scripture in the slave Bible, which was an edited down version to keep us. But what people don't realize is that there's a outside that tiny Bible called the slave Bible in a wider world. Their King James Bible and their Latin Bible was another slave Bible written by other people to keep them under empires.
Yeah.
Now there's a bunch of truth in there, amazing ethical and spiritual uplift. So I am clearly, I mean, anybody will basher or a Christianity or even an Islam basher, but my issue is the followers and their evil, the evil followers who don't even know they're evil. They're like, they got their wife at home right now, tied to a radiator, essentially, right? Literally or figuratively. They have their
Mhm.
children. They're hypocrites, but they pick out of the Bible to do as a rule. They want to do it themselves. They're cheating on their wife. They're gang
Yeah.
banging and saying Allahu Akbar. They're saying Jesus is Lord. Then they're like a rapist or like a
Yeah.
misogynist or a rape culturist, right? Um,
Mhm.
it's a bunch of it's a culture of narcissistic, egotistical bullshit, and
Mhm.
people believe one, they believe they're victims. People who are part of massive religions that control whole countries, who a majority of the world is a part of, it seems, right? At least half the world's a part of these two major religions. People, they think they're victims. So it's like a thing where we can't be seen publicly, even though we believe this privately and talk to people about it. We can't be seen publicly as part of knocking down any part of this because it'll make us weaker in the eyes of our rivals and enemies. So it's very hard for the average Christian to tell a Muslim that this part is a little shaky in my religion. I don't know, because they don't want their children to grow up and leave the religion of what they go to become Muslim and then go to hell, and vice versa, right? And then so it's like a cognitive dissonance. That's something I'm gonna look up right there. Cognitive dissonance forms where it's like gang gang. It's just gang gang. It's just like there are a huge amount of people that claim these religions. They do believe in the core, but a bunch of the other frills and customs and traditions and things, you don't see them doing it. And when you see them doing it, it's festive on a Sunday or at Friday at the masjid or mosque, or on holidays like Eid and Christmas and Easter. They don't actually believe in these things, but they're afraid of what men are naturally afraid of, is being left out of the group, being ostracized. So what happens is the Hotep, whoa, I learned some things about this religion that I believe makes them at least flawed, but maybe even false. And he keeps the same values, social values, and carries them over into an Afrocentric flavor.
Mhm.
This happens around the world, by the way. So there are people that like become, there was raised Japanese Christian Taoism, which is uh, a Buddhism and Taoism influenced spirit system, or they're Chinese Christian and they go back to ancient Confucianism or Taoism. They always find a way to make it like controlling and harmful of women, what they see as weaker men, gay people, children. The earth is always fucked up. It's always a way to be capitalist. It's like, oh, it's always some kind of a way to keep the same power dynamics up in their group, which is oftentimes not limited to angry men who are willing to commit violence. So patriarchy, not that we haven't had some matriarchies that weren't the best, but overall we know what's going on. Even if folks don't admit it, they know what's up. A lot of people are just frauding too. They know exactly what's going on. Everything we just talked about today, they know. They're just afraid to disappoint their family, um, or be out, or be ostracized at work or at the mosque or at the church. So they're just living a lie, and
Right.
they live in a strict. I think I'm an Arab. I think I'm a Roman Christian lie, and like, they don't want to admit that, and because they could be harmed too. Some people could be harmed, right? Um, I can see that. So I don't blame some people for living the lie, because they're trying to protect themselves and their children. They need that community. That's what human beings want, and the only community that they know and have has these unnecessarily strict or contradictory beliefs, that if the Prophet Muhammad or Jesus was to show up in front of their face, they would probably not agree with their heavily cultured ways about how they're praising them.
Mhm.
You know?
For sure. Well, we got to wrap it up. It's been
So,
like an awesome talk with you today. And I hope we can do it again. Oh, we didn't even get to talk about the aliens. You know what I mean? Like, we still got some more to
oh,
chat
oh, save that for a whole. Oh, say that for a whole other episode. I would love to talk about some the aliens. I appreciate you like had this
about.
conversation. Yeah.
Oh, no problem. Is there any closing thoughts you'd like to share with the audience?
Um, I want to talk specifically to so-called blacks in America, whatever you call yourself. Start or join a black organization business. Look up lists of black scholars, no matter how you find it on Google. Read more about the history. Ask your grandparents and the oldest people in your family where they come from, um, in the South or wherever they come from. Just learn more. Like open your mind and learn more than you already have. If you're already a learner, you see yourself as you're a learner. Double that, John. This is the time for it. This is the time for it. We never had so much access to information. Um, and once you're into doing that even more deeply, pull some youth aside, join a program, pull them aside in your block, help them, not just with the information but like actually help them, like break up the fights, talk to them, buy some groceries for their poor grandma or mom, help your neighbors. You know what I'm saying? And this ain't for everybody, because a lot of us are still living in like deep poverty. Please stop blowing your money on bullshit ass stuff for companies that hate us, and take a little bit of that money, that pair of Jordans, or that eating out that night, and just take it and see how you could apply it to an organization that's helping the people. It could be religious, it could be spiritual. Help the helpers, because it's going to come a day in this country real soon, probably before we have gray hair, that it's going to get a lot harder. And those community connections you made now are going to be your real community. Um, don't stop bullshitting yourself. Stop lying to yourself, and be okay losing people along the way, because you're going to gain a whole bunch of other ones who belong with you. Um, Go to therapy, even if one time. Go to a counselor, um, and know that there's something greater than you. Does anyone know what it is? No. Can it, or if they do know, can they prove it to you by telling you? Of course not. But know that you are in something greater, part of something greater, and it's up to you to really live a life that reflects yourself as part of something greater. So help the helpers, help the children, uh, be proud of who and what we are, right? Know more about it too. It's beautiful what we are, biologically, historically, culturally. Be whatever you call yourself, black or not. Be black and proud. Yeah, you can hit me up too. Like I'm always down to chit chat, or I'm a community servant and a teacher and a helper. So I do what I can to redirect you. I'm at the Fresh Negus on Instagram, Facebook.com/S Frosty Jackson Paul on there. Hit me up, and especially if you're in Philly, let's get more dope stuff done. That's fun and community beneficial. Let's work on ourselves more. Let's atone and forgive and move forward because we loose right now as a population. We real loose. If the power went off tomorrow, we're fucked. So the majority of us. So yeah, love yourself and make an actionable love at other people. You know what I'm saying? Please, thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much for the wise words and the words of encouragement for the community. We really appreciate what you do for the community, and we appreciate your passion, because passion is what drives us. And so we know that we're in good hands with people like you. So thank you once again, and we'll see you next time. We'll have another episode.
Appreciate you. Keep doing this. Keep it up. One love. Be safe.
All right. Peace. Peace out.